Hi everyone, my name is Marcie SCHARTZ and I am a junior psych major here at Emporia State University. My faculty sponsor is Dr. Kathy Grover as I did this experiment for the PY 301 class. So I looked at the different study intervals and college students' recall of words. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So looking here at some previous research done from the first bullet point, these people assisted the college students in understanding how their memory properly affects their studying and testing habits, which is also kind of why I thought this would be a good idea for an experiment. Um, Through their study, they found that the more retention time between studying material and taking a test over that same material they studied allows for a better long-term retention, while studying material multiple times benefits short-term retention. So a longer retention time frame allows for improved performance. Um, it also found that people do actually have a certain level of control over their retrieval as to which retrieval process they want to go about using. So this also backs up the articulatory loop theory. So this is a short-term working memory system that enables a person to remember a short string of words by rehearsing them repeatedly in their head. So they're just repeating the words, saying the words to themselves, and that kind of goes with the articulatory loop, which I don't know if you've ever done it, but I know I've definitely quick looked at my notes over something that was really hard I couldn't necessarily get memorized and just said it over and over again as I got my test and found that right away. Kind of goes with that. So for my hypothesis, if a group of participants were to have more time to study information, then they will have a higher recall score on a short-term memory test than a group who has less time to retain that information. So that is what I set out to find. So for my participants, I had 37 total participants, predominantly women, um, and mainly freshmen. So all these participants were undergraduate psych majors, um, or they were undergraduate and enrolled in psych courses, excuse me. So then for my materials, I obviously had the word list, which they had to try and memorize. So as you can see on the screen, this is the word list. It contains 14 random 3 to 5 letter nouns. So I just randomly came up with a list and put it together. So they saw this. They also had the retention and recall survey. So in this survey, there was 3 demographic items, 1 fill in the blank, and 7 Likert scale items. So I thought my most important one was the question asking if I had more time, I would have recalled more words correctly. Not necessarily a question, but they were able to rate this. 1 being they strongly disagree, 4 being neutral, and 7 being they strongly agree with this statement. So I did a 2-group independent experiment. My independent variable was the recall, the retention time. So there was a 30-second group and a 1-minute group. The dependent variable ended up being the word recall. For my procedure, it looked a little different this year with everything being in Qualtrics, but they logged in and Qualtrics provided them with the informed consent, which they had to agree to before beginning the study. Then Qualtrics randomly assigned all my 37 participants to the 2 groups. They were either placed in the 30-second group or the 1-minute group. They were then provided the word list, which they had to try their best to memorize as many words as they could. After that, their time was up for their specific group. They had to try and recall the words. So they had to type them into just a blank area and try and type as many correct words as possible. After they submitted that, they were provided with the retention and recall survey, which had those 3 demographic items, the 1 fill in the blank, and the 7 Likert scale items. And once they submitted that, then they were provided with the debriefing statement. So that's kind of how my procedure went. So what did I find? Well, for my 30-second group, there was a mean of 7.35. I had 20 participants in that group. I had 17 participants in the 1-minute group and a mean of 7.70. And you can see the standard deviation on there as well. If you look at the means and even the standard deviation, there really isn't that much of a difference. So I ran a t-test for the independent samples and I didn't find a significant difference. So darn, I know there wasn't a difference between, if there wasn't a difference in the time frame and if people could recall words better. So this is my figure. So it kind of shows it here in an image for you, basically. So the mean word recall scores for participants, you can see the 30 seconds and the 1 minute. The higher bars show more words recalled. And so there is just the slightest bit of more word recall in the 1 minute group, but not enough to be significant. And the error bars show the standard deviations. So I also studied the Likert scale questions. So again, you can see here the number, the minimum, the maximum, the mean, and the standard deviation. And this is where they had to rank. So I'll remind you, 1 is strongly disagree, 4 is neutral, and 7 is strongly agree. So for my mean, everyone's pretty neutral, all around the neutral range. You can see in the minimum and the maximum that they did use a wide range of those options, but you can see the mean and the standard deviation. There really isn't much variance there. So in conclusion, recall was similar for participants of both groups. So related to past research, kind of what I looked at earlier, a lot of researchers have studied the recall accuracy after a certain time retention that they were allowed. So there is a lot of known data out there which shows memory loss can vary based upon numerous things, ordinal position of the trial, how difficult the words are, all that sort of thing. And then I really got this idea from the model of memory created by Atkinson and Schifrin in 1968. So they really set the foundation for studies based on short-term and long-term memory. But they all come down to one thing, and it's trying to see how well people can memorize words within that specific time frame. So my limitations. A convenient sample, so I only this was only sent out to undergraduates, so that limits my data as well. Especially it was also predominantly women, so I didn't really get a very wide range. My biggest limitation I would have to say would be that we all had to present our studies in Qualtrics. So this allowed for the participants to complete the study in their own time, in their own space, and pretty much do whatever they wanted while doing it. So I think if anything, my biggest change for the future, obviously, conduct it face-to-face, because you do have the risk of the participants just writing down the words. They have a piece of paper and a pen next to them, and it's pretty easy to do. So I don't necessarily know how well of read we got from this. I also would like a larger sample for a more diverse population if I were to redo this or something similar to it in the future. And I would present the word list differently. So like at the top of the screen, you can see it talks about paired word memorization. So while I had 14 words, there were 7 words and they were in 2 columns. So that might have made it easier for people to memorize them. They were able to associate the 2 words next to each other, and then they just clicked in their head better. So I'd make the words a little more difficult, present it differently as a whole, and even allow for a greater difference in time retention to see if there was any variance at all. So, a small difference in time retention may not affect how well people are able to recall a small word list. There wasn't a significance, but I did get that out of it at least. These are my references. They're really good if you want to go take a look at the papers they wrote. And then for my acknowledgments, I want to say thank you to all my participants who participated in my study. I really appreciated it. I also want to say thank you to Zoe Maxwell. She was one of our numerous teaching assistants, but she really helped me out a lot in her own time and answered my numerous questions. And to Dr. Grover as well, you put on a great course and you were very helpful and I learned a lot. My email is at the bottom of the screen. If you have any questions or you want to reach out, you can shoot me an email and I will be happy to be in contact with you. Thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of your day.